Happy Camper Radio starts in 3, 2, 1. It's that time of week again. Time to crank up the radio and listen in to the Happy Camper Radio Show. It's the only place you need to be when you're ready to talk camping. Camping is what we're about. Camping is all we talk about. I'm Skip. They call me the Happy Camper, and for very good reasons. Because anytime the word camping comes out of my mouth, I'm smiling from ear to ear. And we've got a lot to talk about today, a very, very important subject matter I think you're going to want to tune in and listen to. And we'll talk about that here in just a few moments. Our phone number here at the Happy Camper Radio Show is 404-537-CAMP. That's 404-537-2267. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and now subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. So many different ways that you can reach out to us. And all you have to do is go to our homepage, which is www.happycamperradio.com. You'll find every one of our social media icons over there on the right-hand side of the page. Click on any one of them, and you'll be good to go. And the nice thing about logging on to social media and connecting up with Happy Camper is the fact that we will give you a shout-out on the show. And we're going to head over to the shout-out window right now and welcome some new folks who just joined up this past week. First of all, let's start by saying hello to Charlie Ayash of Snellville, Georgia, to the folks at RV Mobile Glass in Scottsdale, Arizona. They like us on Facebook. To Bear Den Campground in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, Ronnie Justice of Maumee, Ohio. Bill Bolden of Buffalo, New York. They're following us on Twitter this past week. To the folks at Pet and Playground Products in Eclectic, Alabama. Scott Alexander of Shreveport, Louisiana. Ellen Phillips, Mark Swain of the UK. Dave Holden of Clinton, Utah. Michael McCoon of Shelbyville, Illinois, Stephen Stearns of Naples, Maine, and Smith Copper of London, England. They added us to Circles on Google Plus this past week. And finally, to the fine folks at American RV Company who subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you, each and every one of you, for connecting up with us and being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Hey, would you like to be on our program? Get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. If you want to talk about something in the world of camping, maybe if you're a full-time RVer, hey, I'd love to have you. And, of course, you know, you can always call us, too, at 404-537-CAMP and leave us a voicemail message. That's the number to call, 404-537-CAMP. As you know, in a couple short weeks, I am going to be heading over to Georgia's Stone Mountain Park. Actually, 3 weeks from today it will be. For my camping trip, it's going to be the Great American Campout 2015, the commitment that I made to go camping. I am hoping that you have already made the commitment, and if you haven't, it's not too late. Just before I went on the show today, I went to the National Wildlife Federation's website and saw that so far they have 51,555 people have made the commitment to go camping. All you have to do is pledge one day between now and September 7th of 2015. Make the pledge to go camping. If you can do it for one night, great. If you get away for 3 days or even a week, that's even better. The more time you spend with the outdoors with your family and getting your kids acquainted with wildlife, the better off you're all going to be. So make that pledge today if you haven't already done it. The magical number is 100,000. That's how many pledges they would like to get because their sponsors are going to donate $1 for every single person who signs up and takes the pledge. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that. All you've got to do is make the commitment to go camping. So my camping trip is coming up here in 3 weeks, July 30th through August the 2nd. I've already made my reservations at Georgia Stone Mountain Park, and it's part of the Great American Campout 2015. I'm going to have some folks joining me there. I'm hoping to meet a lot of people that weekend, and I'm going to be inviting some folks over to my campsite Saturday night to be on the show because I'm going to be doing my radio show right there from the campground and make sure that you have an opportunity to tune on in. For some of you who may be in the area and would like to go camping that weekend, the rates are very, very reasonable. Log on to their website, which is stonemountainpark.com, and check out the campground. And they've got a number for you to call right there and everything. And if you want to make your reservations, hey, great. I would love to meet you. I love getting out and meeting folks at these campgrounds. The studio environment's nice, always has been. And I am really looking forward to going camping here in just a few weeks. Hey, folks, before I get underway with today's show, something very exciting I want to talk about here and mention on the program today. A couple weeks ago, I was contacted by one of our media providers. As you know, there's a number of different ways that you can pick up the Happy Camper Radio Show. You can find us in the iTunes Store, Stitcher, MyroGuide, Podbean, the BlackBerry podcast directories. Of course, you can always go to our website where we have all of our previous episodes as well as the current episode, and you can find them all right there. One of our media providers, the fine folks over at Stitcher, got in touch with me a couple weeks ago, and they were telling me about this wonderful promotion that they were running, an outdoor promotion. It's about off-roading and things like that. They zeroed in on one of our episodes. It was the one I did here several months back, and it was on emergency roadside assistance. Anyway, they went ahead and contacted me and asked me if they could use a segment of that episode on their program. And of course, I was just thrilled half to death about it. There was no question. Yes, definitely. I would love to be a part of that. Just before, I think it was July 1st, they went and ran the promotion on their homepage. And since then, we have had more than 61,000 downloads of the Happy Camper Radio Show. That is just fabulous. More and more people have been tuning into our program. I love it. I know we've made a lot of new friends. A lot of folks are listening to the program now. And anybody that's just now getting acquainted with the Happy Camper Radio Show, we are so glad to have you on board. And at the same time, I want to take a moment to thank all of our longtime listeners who have been with us for several months. And just to thank you for a moment for your participation and contacting the show and emailing me. Keep those emails coming. I try to answer every single one of them when they come in here. And, if I don't get to it right away, I will eventually be able to answer you, especially if you have a camping question. If you just want to say hello, that's okay, too. You can reach me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com anytime. But to Michael and the fine folks over at Stitcher, hey, thank you so very much for considering the Happy Camper Radio Show for your promotion. Literally, there are thousands and thousands of podcasts you can find over at Stitcher.com. And if you're not already connected up with Happy Camper Radio that way, you may want to consider it. Go to Stitcher.com, look up Happy Camper Radio, and subscribe to the show that way. So, there's so many ways you can reach out to us, but Stitcher, like I says, those folks over there are fantastic. They have been fantastic to us ever since we've got connected up with them. All right, let me go right into today's show, folks. Here's something I want to talk to you about that's very, very important. And I think this is something that really affects each and every one of us, especially for those of us who go camping anywhere near an open lake or an open body of water where people are boating. There is this thing called boating under the influence, and it is against the law, and people do it. And when they do that, they put everybody's lives at risk, not just the folks who are enjoying time on the water, but also people along the shores. Boating under the influence is punishable by some prison time, depending upon what you've done and how much alcohol that you may have consumed. And why is this such an important thing to talk about? Well, a lot of these cases involve the use of alcohol and someone who is driving a vessel on the water. There are a couple cases I want to talk to you about here, and I think maybe several months ago, maybe a couple years ago it was, I may have mentioned something along these lines here. I searched my mind, but I'm thinking right now that, yes, I may have mentioned something in the area of a boating incident that occurred here in the metro Atlanta area because I remember it and it created a lot of news coverage, both television, radio, and the newspaper. It was all over the place. But anyway, it's a very serious offense, and some people are out there doing that without ever stopping to realize that something very bad can happen. We got to keep in mind that anytime we are spending time on the lake, it's for recreational purposes in most cases. We're out there to have fun. We're not out there to get hurt, and we're definitely not going to be in a position for somebody to hurt us when all we're doing is enjoying the moment with our family, with our friends, and all it takes is one person to ruin a whole afternoon for everybody. When you're on the shore, I like to go camping by a lake, and just about anybody who goes camping near an open bed of water will usually find a campsite somewhere close to the lake. These are very popular ones, especially the ones that are partially shaded. In my very first episode that I did of Happy Camper Radio, I shared with you one of my favorite campgrounds, which is down at West Point, Georgia. It's the R. Schaefer Herd Campground, and anytime I go down there to go camping, which is not all that often, I always make sure that there is one site that I go and target, and hopefully that site is available at the time I make my reservations because it's popular, it's well shaded, and it's right by the lake. I am just maybe 8 or 10 steps away from the shoreline. So if I'm sitting by my campfire and the campfire goes out and I'm not too tired, I just might take my camping chair and go down by the lake and relax there for a little bit. And it's quiet. You may hear a boat way off in the distance, maybe somebody fishing late at night. And if you go back and sleeping in your tent and somebody just happens to be driving by, you're picking up on this wonderful sound, which it can really, really help put you to sleep. Think about that. Listen to that for a second. Isn't that wonderful? Doesn't that sound good? Wouldn't you like to go camping somewhere next to a lake and be able to hear this to help put you to sleep? It works each and every time, folks. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because when somebody is out on the lake and they are doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, specifically drinking and boating, if something bad happens, let's just say they pass out, let's just say they run into another boat, or they strike a fixed object out there on the lake, there's always the possibility that that boat is going to leave the water, and when it leaves the water, it's going to wind up somewhere. And we definitely do not need it on shore at our campsite or striking anything nearby. But this does happen. It's the same as a vehicle going down the road. If the vehicle crosses the center line, there's a likelihood it's going to hit another vehicle head on. Or the vehicle could leave the roadway and strike a tree. It could strike a fixed object there. Or it could roll over into a ditch. But it's definitely not going to stay on the road in most cases. Same thing with boating. If someone is driving under the influence, if somebody is operating that vessel under the influence, there's always the possibility it could leave the waterway and enter the shoreline where people are camping, where people are relaxing by the lake, where there could be a beach access with a lot of people around. Lives can be put in danger. If by chance you happen to be on the shore, or even if you're out on the lake on another boat, and you happen to see a law enforcement vessel come by, I want you to wave at those folks. I want you to thank those folks because they are out there to make sure that the lake stays safe, to make sure that you are safe. They're not out just looking for people boating under the influence. They're out there checking vessels to make sure that safety measures are in place. Maybe licensing is proper, checking to see that people have life vests. There's a proper number of life vests for the number of people that are on that vessel. And they're also checking for people who may be swimming in the lake that are swimming outside a designated swimming area and are directing them to get back into that roped-in area. There's a number of reasons why law enforcement is on the lake. And again, it is for enforcement purposes, and it is for each and every one of your safety. So if you see law enforcement on the lake, whether it would be the sheriff's department, the police department, here in Georgia, it is the Georgia Department of Natural Resources in a lot of cases. When they're on some of the big lakes, they do have full law enforcement authority, and they can arrest people for boating under the influence. So if you see those law enforcement vessels, let them know that you care about them and you thank them for making it a safe environment for each and every person who may be on the lake. Why do I take boating under the influence so seriously? For the same reason I take driving under the influence so seriously. I have talked to you on many occasions of the fact that at one time in my life I was a law enforcement officer. Did that for 18 years. But I add an interesting perspective to this, folks, because in my law enforcement career, I was also a law enforcement training instructor. I was a field sobriety testing instructor, and what that is somebody who teaches law enforcement officers how to detect a person who may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time they were operating a vehicle. You'll find that a lot of the law enforcement officers who are operating a vessel on the lake are trained and certified in standardized field sobriety testing. And there's a number of things that these officers can do to determine whether or not somebody is boating under the influence. Most likely, they're going to see them operating the vessel on the lake in an unsafe fashion. That may be an indicator for them to stop that boat and start asking questions. There may be an accident of some sort on the lake that causes them to make contact with a boater. Or the boater may just be out on the lake having a good time, and the officer may come over for a safety check. But anyway, there's going to be some sort of interaction between that law enforcement officer and the person who is operating that boat. And generally, in that conversation, the officer may detect that this person is under the influence of alcohol or drugs to the point where it is going to be less safe for them to operate that vessel. When this happens, the officer is going to perform a series of tests. And I talk again about this from experience because, like I said, I was an instructor at one time, and I trained law enforcement officers in this area. One of the things that they will check is the boater's eyes. I know a lot of our listeners have seen the cop shows before. They have seen this on the news. They see the officer standing at roadside, and they've got this driver pulled over. He is out of his vehicle, and he's standing there with his hands to his side, and the officer has this pencil or this pen up in the air, and he is waving it back and forth in front of the driver's face, and he's asking him to follow that pencil or pen with his eyes. What the officer is looking for is something called horizontal gaze nystagmus. I know you've probably never heard that before, but in layman's term, very simply what that is, it's the involuntary jerking of the eyes caused by somebody who may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. It is not something that the driver can control. If you've been drinking, if you've been operating a boat, or if you've been operating a motor vehicle, your eyes are going to tell the truth. You're not going to be able to lie your way out of it. But anyway, the officer is only going to perform that test if he or she suspects that that person may be operating that vessel under the influence. Now, I know you've seen some of the other tests, which is like the walk and turn test, the one-leg stand test. I don't think they can do that out on a vessel that is out on the water. Now, maybe if they take that person ashore and get them up on a level surface, they can go ahead and perform them tests. The officer may even have what is called an alka sensor. You've seen these things too. They puts a little cap on this little device and asks him to blow into it for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and this little device will register a number to determine whether or not this person is or is not over the limit. It depends on what state it is. That those things are permissible in some states, and other states they are not. The last check I saw here in Georgia, they were not. The officer was not able to use that because it was not a standardized test. Either were the ABCs, or counting backwards from maybe 100 to 67. Those are things that can be added, but they are just to confirm the officer's thoughts that, yeah, this person is under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So the officer can do these tests while he is out there on the lake, and generally, again, it's going to be because of a face-to-face contact the officer has with that boater. And the more people that they get off the lake who are boating under the influence, the safer it's going to be for each and every one of us. And I think every one of you who are into camping and are into family-oriented camping like I am pretty much share that same thought. Our phone number here again at Happy Camper Radio is 404-537-2267. Give us a call anytime. Today we're talking about boating under the influence, a very, very serious offense that affects each and every one of us who may be in close contact with a body of water, whether we're camping, whether we're hiking, or just out for the day enjoying time by the beach. Here's something I want to share with you folks, and maybe you have some experiences with this yourself. There have been cases here in the metro Atlanta area. We have two very big lakes in this part of town. We have Lake Sidney Lanier, and we also have Lake Allatoona. Two very, very big lakes, and they're very popular attractions in the summer. In fact, I wouldn't doubt right about now there's going to be a lot of folks out on the lake because the weather is absolutely beautiful. But there's been a couple cases, in fact, one recently here back in March on Lake Lanier where two people were out on a boat and the boat capsized. I believe they're still investigating the cause of this boating accident, but in this case, the boat capsized. Two people on board, one drowned, one taken to the hospital with injuries. It can happen, just like driving a motor vehicle. I don't know if speed was involved or some other sort of situation. Again, like I said, they're still investigating that, so we don't know. But one notable case that I do want to talk about, and this happened back in 2012, and it was all over the news down here in the South. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised on a couple of occasions it may have made national news because so many people were affected by this, and it did happen on Lake Lanier. There were two boats out on the lake, and it was nighttime. It was dark. Things can happen more seriously at night on the lake than they can during the day because, number one, you've got a visibility factor. You've got to be able to see what's in front of you. You can't be running a speedboat at a high rate of speed in the dark and not think for a moment that you've got nothing but water ahead of you. Anyway, in this particular case, there were two parties out on the lake. There was a boater, and there was a party of, I believe, 10 or 13 people on a pontoon boat. And they were out having fun. Everybody was having a great time. This speedboat collided with the pontoon boat. And you can imagine the damage that could be created. I don't know how fast the speedboat was going, but definitely it was determined later on that the guy operating the speedboat was at fault. And when he collided with the pontoon boat, two people were thrown off the side of the vessel. Both brothers. One brother was pulled back onto the boat by a third brother. The sad part was he did not survive his injuries. The other brother who went overboard, they weren't able to locate him. And it wasn't until 10 days later that divers found him in a very deep body of water on Lake Lanier. A family that is totally devastated. A family who was doing nothing but being out, having a wonderful time. And folks, you see what can happen. The person who was driving the speedboat, to my understanding, left the scene and was located later on at a marina, and some field sobriety tests were conducted. He was arrested. This case has already been to trial, and it was I don't want to say a very long court hearing, but in the end, he was found guilty, and I don't remember what all the charges were. But two people died 2 brothers were killed, a family devastated. His sentence was 30 months in prison, followed by 18 months of probation and 340 hours of community service. Does the punishment fit the crime? I think that's open for debate. A lot of folks would probably say no. But anyway, that's a totally different issue. The fact is, what happened on Lake Lanier that night did not have to happen. It could happen anywhere. That's why boating under the influence is something everybody needs to be concerned about. If you're out on the lake and you've got a cell phone with you, again, I don't talk too much about bringing electronics, but if you're out on the lake and you have a cell phone with you, if you see somebody who is operating a vessel under the influence or operating a vessel in a way that is going to be unsafe and a danger to each and every person who may be out on the lake or on the shore, you definitely pick up that phone and you call 911. Because a person like that needs to be taken off the lake, whether they are boating under the influence or not. I can understand having fun, but being out and being safe about it is the very most important thing you can do. So whatever you do, anytime that you go boating, make sure that you have your life vest with you. Make sure all of the safety measures are in place. If you go to happycamperradio.com, in the safety tips section, you'll find some information on boating safety. Definitely follow those safety tips to the letter. It's all about having fun, but definitely you want to follow the rules. You want to make sure that you do everything appropriate so you can go home safe, you can go back to your campground safely, and come back each and any time that you want and be able to enjoy the time on the lake. Boating under the influence? Not going to cut it. No way, no how. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. Yep. Okay, folks, this week I'm going to take you out to the state of Montana to Court Sheriff Campground. This campground is open all the way through the end of 2015, so you can go just about any time you want. This is a beautiful destination, and Court Sheriff Campground has some history to it, and there's a lot of information that you can read right on their website, and it's going to be on our homepage all week long. All you've got to do is click on the featured campground button. The history of this campground, the history of Court Sheriff, dates back all the way to 1865. It's a wonderful destination. It's very popular, well developed. The campground is paved with 48 sites. Most are located on the water. And what have we been talking about today? During the peak summer months, services include a vault toilet, potable water, trash, recycling containers, and a campground host. Look at all the activities and amenities on their website. There's a ton of them on there. Beach access, emergency phone, day use area, canoeing, campfire rings, boating, paved parking areas. Who would not want to visit a place like this? And all the information can be found right there on their website, and you can find it at www.happycamperradio.com. And a couple of things to know before you go. Campsites are single-unit sites unless they are marked as double sites. If you're coming with a few extra family members and they're under the age of 18 and they want to pitch a small tent on that site, that is permissible. Pets must be physically constrained by a leash under 6 feet in length or attached to a physical structure. Don't leave your pets unattended. It's your responsibility to clean up after your pet. The quiet hours are from 10 p.m. until 8 a.m. A wonderful camping destination for you to consider anytime this year. If you're going through the state of Montana, consider Court Sheriff Campground. It is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. And, of course, if you have a campground that you would like for us to feature on the program, definitely get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. Make sure you include a link to the campground website. Well, folks, that's about all the time I have for this week's show. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. Hey, and don't forget, every pet deserves a loving home. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Don't forget you can catch us online anytime at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to circles on Google+, and now subscribe on YouTube. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And yes, my friends, I'm going to do my very best to make a happy camper out of you. Have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next weekend. This is Happy Camper Radio.